Hello and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Eathan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones and let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Very good to see you yet again on a lovely Saturday afternoon for most of us, I suppose. Maybe Carl Lieberman out there is slightly towards the morning time. And I know some people are in the middle of the night, but for me, it's afternoon here, right outside of Chicagoland. All right, I'm going to hang out for a minute while people are still popping in here. Good to see you all yet again. And very interested. Mark Steiger, are you talking to me or someone else? No, someone else. Okay. He's looking above the computer. All right. All right, good stuff. So let me give a quick introduction for us. A few more people jumping on here, and then we'll dive right in. Thought I'd give just a little bit of preview on the upcoming convention dates and what we got in the works. Looks to be some pretty interesting stuff upcoming, and I know there's probably some questions out there. There's been a lot going on my end, and so haven't been able to fully share about everything, but it is very much looking exciting. Lots of cool stuff. We got some fun sponsors and things going on, so I can definitely give an update about what's happening there, answer any questions, and yeah, we can have a chat about anything else that comes up. Hey there, Carl. You look like you're on an adventure, my friend. Carl Lieberman looks like he is not in his home base as usual. All right, let me read the intro, and then we'll get rocking. Let's see here. So, just to remind you, this is Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's the event where we bring on some really cool folks in the piano industry to have some interesting chats, and we get folks together who really care about what they're doing and what's going on in the industry. So welcome. This project is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, which is an online educational resource that offers you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at www.pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And as I just mentioned a little bit earlier, we're putting together a convention here in September, starting on the 2nd. And yeah, I'll give a few more details on what's going on there today as well. And we'll chat about whatever kind of fun stuff comes up in addition to that. Carl, you unmuted yourself. Did you have something to chat about? You look like you're...
Well, we have a house up in the mountains, and I'm on the deck of my house in the mountains here. That's the lake behind me.
Wow, that's very cool. Let me get a spotlight there for real quick. I did not know that.
There we go. That's Lake Gregory. It's near Lake Arrowhead.
Wow, that's cool. So what's the name of those mountains?
The San Bernardino Mountains. We're around 5,000 feet. It's cool. High desert, and there's a lake here.
Cool. Well, and thank you very much for the invitation. We'll all be out there. I don't know, sometime next month. We'll be arriving.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be great. Yeah, we'll all go for a swim in the lake and maybe catch some fish. Is there some fish in there in the lake or something?
There are fish, but I just swim across the lake every day. So.
Oh, awesome! Beautiful. That sounds great. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, man. Yeah, I'll definitely be there to visit soon. So so actually, Carl, I might as well keep you on for a second if you want to chat. You're going to be teaching a little bit at the upcoming convention.
I am.
Yeah. So tell us what you're going to talk about.
Well, Dean and I are going to talk about Cybertuner. And for those who use Cybertuner, we'll have some insights. We've got a brand new feature, an artificial intelligence feature that is just Cybertuner runs through 100 iterations in a nanosecond to improve its tunings. Amazing stuff, and we'll be talking about that. And then for those of you who don't use Cybertuner, we'll give you an overview of what's special about Cybertuner. And then for people who don't care about Cybertuner, we'll talk a little about tuning stuff that might be of interest to everybody. So that's what's on the agenda.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks for sharing about that. And I was just one of the things that we haven't talked about. I mean, I don't know if we addressed it very specifically in the radio hour. Maybe we haven't. I just forgot there's been so many. But the perfect 12th tuning, the kind of concept around that. And I know Cybertuner has some things worked into the system to make that easier for a tech to achieve, right? Is that true?
Right. Well, we're going to talk about pure 12 tuning. You know, Bernard Stopper died recently, and he was one of the real proponents for pure 12 tuning. So we're going to talk about what pure 12 tuning is and what it isn't, and we're going to talk about then our take on pure 12 tuning. We kind of we're not slavishly devoted to pure 12 tuning. We're constantly fitting that in to all of the other intervals. We're prioritizing that the 12th should be very, very close to pure, but we're making small corrections so that all the other intervals can also be good.
Very cool. Yeah, I've been doing, in my tunings, I consider the pure 12ths while I tune, right? And that's what I've found is useful about it, is to say, oh, hey, let me check, a few intervals, and let me throw in the pure 12th and see how this note that I'm tuning fits into a context of pure 12ths. And sometimes I think pure isn't always. It just seems sometimes unachievable in my tunings. Maybe that's just something, like if I'm tuning a spinet especially or something like that. I test the 12th and I'm close.
Well, let me just say, when I finish a tuning, I play all of the 12ths, and to an oral check, all of the 12ths are perfectly pure. When I say that we're fudging a little, I mean, tenths of a cent from pure 12ths to preserve other interval relationships. But the 12ths should be very, very close to really pure, in my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing. What is it that you prioritize in tuning, and why? And because there's lots of right ways to tune. I'm not claiming that this is the be all and end all, but I think there's certain advantages you get from pure 12 tuning. So we'll talk about that.
Very cool. Yeah, glad you're going to insert that into the conversation. Joshua Martel asks, do I tune orally or with a device? And my answer for that is I tune both. And I haven't, no contradiction to Cybertuner or anything. Of course, there's other devices out there. There's Verituner. I actually haven't used Verituner too much. But that's another device out there I know, which is people like the option. And then there's Cybertuner. Cybertuner is actually one that I've used primarily, and so I also have used TuneLab. And I think primarily what I like to do, probably like anybody with tuning software, well, not like anybody, like people who kind of want to be more bespoke to what they do and really feel like they're doing a customized thing is I use the electronic device as a reference. And then, I check by ear. And sometimes it's, sometimes I feel like the device is different than what my ear is telling me. But then maybe on another pass, the device. So sometimes I think that the device tell me something different than what I have, and then I go to where the device is, and I say, you know what, actually I like that better. So kind of gives me a little bit of feedback on what's going on. The thing that I've appreciated most about devices is, number one, the tuning exam mode. And I don't know that I think a lot of people who, for example, use the Cybertuner, they don't even necessarily know about the exam mode, or if they do, they wouldn't know how to use it. But I found it really helpful in preparing for the tuning exam. It just gave me a nice third-party objective reference for what I was doing. And then when I was practicing, I had something meaningful to compare it against. And regardless of whether, the sound was perfect to what I would prefer, it helped me give that objective reference and helped me feel confident that I could pass the exam, And I definitely heard from, there's one guy that I know that I believe he got like 100%, right, on the tuning exam, which is pretty impressive. And I don't think a lot of people are going to get 100%. And he was telling me, he would never actually tune the piano according to the PTG tuning exam, but he knew how to pass it. And he often, if he was going to tune, had a much sharper in the treble, right? Like much more stretch on a piano than you would expect in the tuning exam. And again, this has been talked about. I think it's just, to have that objective reference and that we can all agree on for the tuning exam is important. And it's not necessarily, it's about, accuracy and precision, and it's less about an ability, and it's less about, the nuances of anybody's custom styling. Yeah, Carl?
Right. Just if on the tuning exam, just the master tuning tends to, in the upper treble, be halfway between a pure single octave and a pure double octave, which is much less than almost all of us actually stretch in real life. It's a much cleaner treble on the tuning exam. But then again, you can be off by 6 cents before you lose a point. So it's very forgiving. If you were 11 cents different from what the master tuning wanted, you'd only lose 1 point.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So beyond the exam, just found it useful to have an objective comparison, just to be able to tune things. I think these devices are really great for raising, at least they've been really great for raising my awareness about the nuances of my ability to change a note when I move the hammer, when I'm tuning, right? So I think when I first started to use devices, there were times where I might move the hammer without a device and be like, did that change? I think it changed, but maybe that's just my imagination. And then having the device as a third-party reference allowed me to go, oh yeah, that was a change. And then furthermore, to train my brain to sort of, even without the device, now be able to recognize that those subtle changes exist, what makes them happen in terms of the mechanics, how my hand moves, and also like just train, I believe trained my hand and my body to understand what subtle movements are required in order to make those changes. I don't know. Did you have any comments on that, Carl? Your internet might not.
Well, yes. Listen, Emily and Debbie at North Bennett Street are now teaching first people to tune with an ETD, and then moving on to oral tuning. And I think one of the incredible advantages that ETD tuning gives you is you really learn stability. You set a note, you set the first string, and then you pound it, and you see whether a tuning is at a level way beyond what you can hear. And the same thing also, I think it forces you to have better hammer technique, because you can see 1/10 of a cent changes, 2/10 of a cent changes with the ETD, and you can see what you had to do to make those type of changes. So I think even if you're a die-in-the-wool oral tuner, I think you can learn something by getting the feedback from an ETD.
Yeah, agreed, totally. Yeah, beyond that, well, actually, Josh was the one who asked the question. Josh Martell, are you still here? Do you have experience with ETDs? Are you an ETD guy? Are you an ear guy? Are you considering one or the other? Let's see what you put.
I'm prepping for the exam. I have tried about everything I can get my hands on. I've done a little bit of an older version of Cybertuner it's on like a Pocket PC. TuneLab demo. I have what used to be called Piano Meter. I forget what it's called. Maybe that's the new name actually. Which I haven't heard of it. Which is interesting. It samples every note, the inharmonicity for every note, which I think gives it a little bit different characteristics. And it's got some neat graph modes that'll show the strengths of the overtones and nice sort of inharmonicity graphs. It's pretty nice. I actually like it. Yeah, so I've tried lots of different things. And yes, I use it for feedback to try to figure out, like, am I on track for an exam, being able to do a temperament.
Cool. And how's it going with your exam practice?
Pretty good. There's some details around like the stretch that if you don't have exam mode, you probably have to do a little extra math for. It's coming. Sometimes I have more trouble with octaves than I do with maybe with the actual temperament. Like expanding out is more trouble for me, but we're getting there.
Cool. Well, if you ever need any advice, you've got us all here. So I think there's at least a handful of folks that could answer some questions for you or give you some guidance. Where are you located?
I'm south of Chicago.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So not too far from me. South of Chicago in Illinois or in Indiana or something?
Illinois, Champaign-Urbana area.
Oh, okay. All right. So not super close. Like, what is Champaign? Is it a couple hours south?
It's about 2 hours to Chicago.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say anything about Chicago. You're nowhere close, man. Come on.
From a world perspective, it's close to Chicago, but that's
that actually reminds me of a story. I'm just kidding, of course, but it reminds me of a story. My wife, I think this story came from my wife, but I know a few people that went to school in Champaign. There's a University of Illinois that's there, and so I think this story came from my wife. So there was an exchange student, right? Like somebody that had come from another country who, decided that they wanted to go to University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, to go to university. And they're like sort of sitting in class together one of the very first days. And she's talking to, her new acquaintances. And she says, well, I'm so excited to be here in this country. And I chose this university in Champaign, Illinois, because I looked on the map and it was in the middle of everything. I could go to New York. I could go to, Los Angeles. I could go to Chicago. Like I could go, she was naming all these different places. She's like, any day I could just, hop over or something. And, she came from Europe, where like you can actually go from country to country, like in a matter of hours sometimes. She was very sad to find out that it wasn't going to be so easy to travel from Champaign, Illinois to all of these places. Like you'd have to hop on a plane and, make a big trip of it. So always found that kind of a funny story. So yeah, I think that in terms of the Pure 12th, again, from my experience, I like to kind of have it as a reference, and then move on from there. But it's I'd be interested to study it more and see some type of the like graphics and around the Pure 12ths and how it corresponds to a piano. I don't know if if there's some stuff on that when Cybertuner does calculations or something like that, that would be very interesting to see. That's another thing that was helpful about having an ETD is actually to now listen to the partials of the notes. So, and have a graphical representation of them. So if you program the ETD appropriately and set it the right way, it'll listen to a specific partial, and it could be the partial that you're also listening to. And you can sort of very carefully be listening and adjusting, listening to the partial and watching how it affects how the device is measuring it. And I think that's another cool advantage. Yeah, a lot of very useful things are coming out of using ETDs. And again, I've used Cybertuner myself, so definitely could recommend it.
Let me just say, if I can just say something about, listening to multiple partials and sampling every note, which we're now doing. Cybertuner was always listening to 4 partials at a time, and now we are almost sampling every note. But the issue isn't whether you sample every note or whether you sample every partial. The real issue is, what do you do with that information? How do you make sense of that? And so we now, what Dean and I are playing with is, we can now balance every interval. And let's say in the middle 2 octaves, we can balance thirds, fourth, fifth, sixth, tenths, twelfths, whatever. But maybe we should weight some intervals more than others. So we're actually now playing with how to prioritize these intervals and to weight them to get what we want. I think too much attention is paid to, are you sampling every note? Or are you only sampling some notes? Are you sampling every partial? Or are you just sampling some partials? The real art of ETD tuning is, what do you do with that information? What do you prioritize, and how do you prioritize? And that's really what's different between different ETDs.
Sure. Yeah. And it's fascinating. What's been fascinating to me is also imagining, and maybe folks on the call, anybody else who has an opinion on this, of course, could share too. My sense is that the perception from a tuner's perspective of what a piano should sound like, not only has it been individualized, but it has evolved over the years, right? I mean, there was a period of history where we didn't have equal temperament at all, right? And so the sound of a piano that a piano tuner expected, really didn't have very much to do with what we expect today, having equal temperament and trying to balance everything out to such a degree. And I'm also, I believe there was some intimation from Bernard even to that idea that maybe the tuning itself had increased stretch more, like maybe even historically the central octave, and maybe it was just out of available information. Maybe that central octave itself might not have been stretched as much in the past as it is starting to be stretched nowadays. I think I see you nodding there, Carl. Is that something?
Well, look, one of the things that's interesting to me, so working in Cybertuner, we have a core group of people who is constantly feeding back between our algorithms and our ears. And some of these people are like people like Kent Swafford or Don Menino or Atsundo. And, people who are spectacular oral tuners. And we have lots of disagreement. Don Menino's idea of the perfect stretch on a piano is radically different than Kent Swafford's idea of the perfect stretch on a piano. And I know myself, over the last 25 years working with Cybertuner, I've gone from less stretch to more stretch to dramatically more stretch to less stretch. You keep it's an evolving target, so I think historically things have changed, but I also think, so we evolve. We decide, what's more important to us. There's no right answer to this. There's really a lot of right answers to how
there's
to
a range. There's a right range, but there's not a right answer. Yeah. I think that's true. And I think, again, this is my personal perception, but I feel like I've heard it and I'm getting it maybe from you, Carl. And it's kind of annoying, maybe. The more carefully you listen, right? And the more experience you have with tuning pianos, your brain changes, right? Like you listen to more subtle nuances, different intervals start to stand out more or less to you. And from somebody who's actually studied, neuroscience and how the brain works and changes and evolves, I don't have a direct evidence, experimental evidence for this, but I'm not surprised if the brain is literally altering the perception, right? The perception actually changing as you move on and on and on, and I think that then affects how you want to tune the piano, because you're literally perceiving it differently based on having listened to pianos for so many years with the same goal in mind. So that has messed with my head on occasion because I get to this point where I say, is this out of tune? Is this in tune? But like, I thought I was getting better at this. I don't know. It can kind of be, and it'll be like, oh, I would have liked this in the past, but now I like this, right? Or I like to highlight this interval or something like that, or I like to use this technique. So that piggybacks on what you're saying, Carl, of saying, maybe in a certain period I'm enjoying like a more stretch, and in another period I'm starting to narrow it down. I do think, even like I said, the exam study started to make me narrow my stretch a little bit more, because I was doing it, practicing for the exam, trying to practice that narrowed stretch sound, get it in my head. And then as I would tune pianos beyond my practice, I might tend to narrow it a little bit, just based on becoming familiar with that pattern.
Well, let me just say, the argument that Don Menino will make is you want to get kind of sympathetic support from the undamped strings up at the top. And if you want to get that sympathetic support, you've got to be closer to 2/1 octaves, to have the energy really excite the undamped strings, which is much less stretch than most of us are doing. And so the question is, and I know for Don, he feels like there's kind of a volume swell when everything is really working together, but that involves less stretch than most of us are commonly putting on the piano up at the top. So the question is, what are you doing and why are you doing it?
Right. So just to kind of spit that back from a different angle. So it sounds like you're saying if you stretch it less, that allows for more kind of resonance and sympathetic vibration. Of course, you have those upper register strings who don't have dampers on them too, right? So they have that ability to resonate. But then, what we didn't just mention, the other side of it is like when I play the lower notes, say, and I let them ring out, or I play a chord in my left hand and then I go play a high note, I want that to fit in a certain way. And I feel like it's the sacrifice in the opposite direction, no?
I completely agreed. The thing I like about Pure 12 tuning and this whole thing is you're looking at wider compass intervals and you're trying to knit the bass and the treble. And you'd like to be able to play something in the 6th octave and then hit a low bass note, and it really sounds in tune to what you were playing in the 6th octave. That to me is the goal of great tuning, is that the whole piano is knit together. And and it's one of the reasons I think that, this emphasis that we have on temperament tuning is kind of crazy. It's kind of the least important thing, how perfectly these really tight intervals of thirds, fourths, fifths, and sixths in the middle of the piano are, has very little to do, in my opinion, with the real sound of the piano, of the whole piano. So yes, those are the things you're balancing. More stretch lets the piano sound more knitted together from the top to the bottom, but less stretch also has different things that it does better. So, it's what you're valuing and why. There, again, some really great people disagree on this.
Yeah. And I guess, it's refreshing to have great people disagreeing on something. It makes the people who don't always feel as great, like myself, a little bit more confident being, uncertain about or even having a strong opinion that differs from, someone else, right? Let me go back, because I know I promised to talk about the convention a little bit here. I thought, let me just give a little bit of info. We can go back to talking about tuning, I think, if we want, or anything else. I think happy to open it up. But yeah, let's talk about a couple of the folks that are going to be presenting, what they're going to be presenting. So one that might be interesting to call out. So Sally Phillips. I talked to her recently on the phone and got an idea of what she's going to be teaching about. And that sounds pretty exciting. And so she's going to be talking about prepping the new piano. And she kind of says that, new pianos, they have patterns, right? Things that happen to them, and things that you have to, prepare for, things that settle into place, how to make them sound good, having been on a showroom floor and then coming into someone's house, like all this stuff. So basically, title of the talk, or sort of the title of the talk, Prepping the New Piano. It's a brief description. New pianos don't miss the details. And basically she's saying a checklist of things to watch for in new pianos when prepping for delivery. And yeah, I think that should be exciting. And of course, if you haven't had experience of a lecture with Sally, she's the name of her piano brand. She's had a shop that deals in Steinways, and she travels all around the world to kind of solve the most confusing issues for the top venues and performers in the world, really, and especially on Steinway pianos. But the name of her business is Piano Perfect LLC. And again, I always, it's very appropriate for me to say, once I knew the name of Sally's business, but once I met her and I learned kind of what a perfectionist she is, I realized that it was a very suitable name. It wasn't just in name only. And that extends to her lectures and her classes. Every time that she's taught something for us, she really puts a lot of time and attention. And not only does she kind of plan and try to make it really great, but just naturally, just being herself, she's always sharing some really great stuff just because of who she is. So that should be exciting. I'll tell you a little bit about what Thomas Strange is going to talk about. So we had Tom Strange on Radio Hour, several months ago. And actually, he was someone that was referred to us by Sally Phillips, because I don't think he's that far from her geographically. But he is, I guess I want to say maybe the curator or the lead at a place called the Siegel Music Museum, SIGAL. Very cool project. They have, historical pianos. They also have lots of other historical instruments, just interesting instruments on display. They've actually got a really cool website you can visit. You can listen to the instruments and things like that. He had his own private collection. And then I think it was, the guy's name was Sieg, his last name was Siegel. Another fellow had a collection, and he sort of decided to come and curate that and create a bigger project where more people could, have the privilege of participating in what kind of instruments and objects they had. So let's get a little info on Tom. I'll give you his bio. Tom has presented numerous lectures and concerts on early piano development in England, the US. He's a builder and restorer of early keyboard instruments. Articles on the life of early square pianoforte builders, and newly published book on the Kirkman family of harpsichord builders and the Geib family of piano makers have greatly expanded the understanding of this early industry. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm getting a little bit of distortion. Yeah? Nothing on your end. Okay, I guess I'll just deal with it. Let's see here. And then, what do we say? Strange and a group of partners founded the Siegel Music Museum in Greenville, South Carolina in 2017 to promote the many forms of musical language and highlight early keyboard instrumental music. His lecture is called 4 Important Early American-Made Pianos. He says we'll hear about 4 startling and very different American pianos that led to the explosion of piano making in the 19th century. And he said America was never simply a consumer of pianos, but began producing them contemporaneously with London and Paris in ways that will be new to most viewers. We will describe in some detail the technology and stories behind the John Behrendt piano of 1775, the Alpheus Babcock first iron frame piano of 1825, the Robert and William Nunn's Unicord piano of 1834, and the Chickering Cocked Hat grand piano of 1855. Now, the ways that these pianos changed the landscape for piano making and marketing and the technology hurdles that were overcome create a fascinating background to the modern piano today. So that sounds really fascinating. Very excited about that. I'll pause there a little bit and curious if anybody had any questions or comments on some of that content that we're going to look forward to participating with. Okay, cool. Make sure I'm not overwhelming you with information. I'll pause here to return to the comments and see where we're at. I know a few people had said some things. So Josh had made those comments about ETDs and the exams. Nancy said historic non-equal temperaments in ETDs save her hours of research and oral practice. Donna Bird, I like to tune thinking the piano will be played by duet players, one piano, four hands. Interesting. Bill Clayton said, Kawai pianos have lower inharmonicity than Yamaha and Steinway. Lower inharmonicity leads to less stretch naturally. And let's see, Carl, you said in the concert hall where I work, we have 2Ds. I tune them with a lot of stretch, 52 cents on C8, no complaints. And Pat Wilbur asked if anyone is still using the PT100. Are you, Pat? Oh, it says anyone else, right? So I guess you are. Pat, can you chime in or not? Or are you still here? Yeah, you are, but okay, maybe not. Yeah, I haven't used it. I believe I've heard of it. It sounds does anybody know how that works? Is that one of those where you have to like create I'm assuming it's more of an analog type device, or one that's not an app, and it may even be one of those cases where you have to sort of just use it as a reference point for then deciding on your own stretch and appropriate things. I don't know. I know there's some devices like that. So another topic which I thought it would be fun to chat about for a second here is piano cleaning. I actually, I was just out on a call a few days ago and, did a piano cleaning, and I know I have this team in New York City, and we use Gazelle software, and it makes it relatively easy for you to create a checklist of items that when someone is self-booking an appointment, they can choose from. And so, I took the opportunity to go ahead and use that feature, right? And so added things like, piano cleaning, sticky keys, your common things, so they could just check off, what they want as part of their visit. And with cleaning, actually added 3 different levels, right? Just in case people want just a quick touch up or they want something, really deep. So we have kind of like basic, intermediate, and deep cleanings of pianos. And of course, that offers different price points. But I found it really interesting how much more often we were cleaning pianos by just offering it as an option. And I was also, interested by the fact that, people are willing to compensate for piano cleaning, maybe not the same as piano tuning, but, it can be quite a significant way to add some extra income onto a visit just by offering a cleaning. And because I see that people are just booking it themselves and they can see I list the price of what it is, it's a very open and simple way. It's not like it's a hard sell for people that you're going to clean their piano. So anybody have an interesting experiences with cleaning pianos, or like techniques that you use, or tools or procedures or ways you introduce that option to clients or customers? Elday, I see that you're unmuted, but I'm not sure if you meant to say something or if that was a mistake. Did you have something to add on that? Okay, so not so. Yeah, Carl, what do you got for us?
Well, something that's so basic and so simple and so effective is to have like a paintbrush, an 1.5 inch wide paintbrush with fairly stiff bristles, and to just go between the tuning pins and just shake everything up. And then with a vacuum, with a kind of a brush attachment, a portable vacuum, you can vacuum almost everything out from the pins. Like it's the secret is using a fairly stiff bristled paintbrush, and that just gets all that crap between the tuning pins of ability to be sucked out with a vacuum.
Yeah, totally agreed. Yeah, Kevin, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I've just been experimenting lately with microfiber cloths and the Spurlock cleaning tools, a very short one. I take the cloth and the microfiber cloth with the little plastic microfibers on the bottom end and wedge it down between the pins, and then use the side of the shortest tool of the Spurlock cleaning tools to push and around, and it just wicks all the dirt, all the grime up. And I did it for a mason in Hamlin that the priest at the church, he said, this has got to be cleaned, and nobody's ever cleaned it before, and it really came up nice.
Very cool.
So I'm still experimenting it, but all it is just putting that microfiber cloth, working it between the tips, and then you put that tool on top of it, and it will not gouge the plate paint or anything.
Right.
And it really does a great job. Takes some time, but they were more than happy to compensate me for it.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing on that. I got a question from Jim. Let me just make sure it goes to everyone so you can see it was just a direct message. So he said, have some cool tools, vacuum flex device, did a review for TT&T. Also have the $50 wand from Shaft that does the board without scratching, use detailing oil on plate. Yeah, on the back of what Carl says, I wanted some paintbrushes to do similar stuff, and I was in a hurry one day, and I popped into like a Walgreens or a CVS, just basically like a drugstore, and I found in the kids' toy department they had like this cool little plastic baggie with I want to say it's got like 25 different little paintbrush type things in it, and those are super cheap. They're probably like, I don't know, $10, max $15. You get this huge assortment of little paintbrush type things. There's sort of different sizes of bristles and tips. And, they might even have a few of those like sponge painting type of things. And I found it really cool to just have something like that around. And you can get between pins. It can pick up some of the dirt. I think if you need a little bit more stiffer bristles, you're probably not going to get them in that type of a kit, but very useful. From Alan Eder, he asked, how long does it take to do the most thorough cleaning that you offer? What is included? Yeah, let's chat through it. It's actually, I have it listed. Maybe I can bring it up while we're chatting. I have it listed on our site. So basically what I do is I list approximately what we're going to do and how much time it's going to take in the options for the booking software. And then whenever I'm cleaning, I just review, okay, what do we say we're going to do? It gives me a nice outline of what to do. And so without bringing it up, I have an approximate idea. But you can tailor it however you like, right? Like however much you want to do and however much time. But I would say, I think our sort of most basic cleaning thing, let's say it's kind of like a light dusting and a key cleaning or something like that. And that would be on the order of, without giving specific prices, maybe like a 1/10 to a 20th the cost, 10 to 20% the cost of, say, just the tuning, right? Or a tuning and pitch raise, say. And I might say that that's going to take like 15 minutes or something. So I imagine myself, maybe I've got like a feather duster. Just, a lot of people leave their pianos and they don't touch it. They don't do much. Might go over, get some of the exterior dust, not so much of the interior dust, off of the piano, and then get some Cori Key Bright and clean off the piano keys. And I'll just, because when it comes down to cleaning, having that time both stated when they're booking the appointment and as a reference point, I'll set a timer and I'll watch it go by, and I'll just basically do what I can do to clean the piano within that time. And I'll just give myself permission to stop, when the timer's up, so that I don't get too obsessive about it or promise, too much. And then on intermediate cleaning, you could say lasts anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes, let's say. And in that case, maybe we'll get a little bit deeper into the piano and do some interior work, right? So if it's an upright piano, it might entail, I've got to remove some parts just to tune the piano. So just like quickly going over things with a vacuum, or like a paintbrush or something like that, just picking up whatever dust I can in, say, like a half hour or 40 minutes or something like that. And then, potentially, if time doesn't allow, like leaving some things uncleaned, right? Like just within the time that I've allotted. So let's say I can't get a chance to clean the under part of the piano, right? Of an upright piano. Maybe I'll just clean around the keys and stuff like that. And the cavity that's open there, and maybe give it a good polish on the outside. Another good reference, I think it's called the Tech Detailing Kit in Schaff, but there's a little kit that you can buy. I think it's like $35, and it's got a bunch of different piano cleaning liquid products. There's like one for satin finish, one for like a gloss finish. There's one for wood as opposed to, lacquer and polyester and things like that. And then I think it also comes with Cori Key Bright, and it also comes with a couple of those microfiber cloths that we just talked about. And so those microfiber cloths work really well to polish the outside, especially of like a lacquer or polyester finish piano. It really gets the shine. If it's got a gloss on it, it gets the shine back. It looks really good. Yeah, so that's kind of the intermediate. Again, I'll set a timer, and if I've either completed all of the things that I list on my list, then I'll call it a day. Or if the timer's up that I set the timer, I'll call it a day, and I won't get too deep into it. And then I'll talk about kind of what would be more advanced in a sec, but I see there's some comments here that came in here. So Dan said cleaning is a constant part of his work. Kevin McGill sent me a direct message. Got way too much into cleaning appointments on his Gazelle and then took them off. Too fatiguing. So he presents it as an add-on when on site, and it fits into what he wants to do. Yeah, I mean, I think that putting a timer in place and also like quoting the customer how much time it's going to take is helpful in sort of limiting how deep you're going to go. I also noticed that I've been tested by an allergist at various times, and I've tested positive for a dust allergy, but also negative. My most recent test was negative for dust allergy. I don't necessarily sneeze a lot around the dust, but like when you're cleaning a piano, oh man, a ton of dust. And I notice like it dries out my sinuses. I might even be more prone to getting sick, like after having cleaned a really dusty piano. So, just to note that that's something to be prepared for if you're going to get into dusting and cleaning. And in that case, aside from all of our viruses, running around, it's nice to just wear a mask so you don't inhale all the dust that comes up when you're cleaning, stuff like that. And yes, Chuck said, be careful around mold. Agreed. So Jim Kelly keeps sending me private messages after sharing with you guys. All right. I'm pretty sure they're not meant to be private.
Eathan, can I?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Eathan, let me share one thing.
Yeah.
The $1 million tip. I buy from Amazon a case of canned air, compressed air for $35. I get 12 of these cans, and you're not going to use more than a half a can. After you've cleaned the piano, if you spray where the tuning pins are and you spray where the soundboard is, it gets the last little bit of dust out and it makes it look super clean. And you're using $2 worth of compressed air. It's a must-have tool to have with you all the time.
Awesome. Thanks for that tip. Very much appreciated. Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Yeah, Donnie.
It's been more than one piano that I've faced that had sticking keys, and I knew nothing short of removing them to get rid of the mice turds and mouse turds and the dead baby mice.
Oh, yes.
I just brought it in. And Abby Simon did not like to have his keys cleaned.
Oh.
He wanted to feel them. And I had used Corey Cleaner. So I had to go out and clean that all off. Just
Can I tell a great Ted Sambell story?
Yeah, go for it.
Ted Sambell tells us he used to take care of Glenn Gould's piano, and he used to take care of the old Chickering that Glenn had at a cabin up in Canada. And he would go out there before Glenn was going out for the weekend, and he would tune the piano. And he went out there and he tuned the piano. He decided to be a hero. He was going to clean it up, and he took the action out and he cleaned everything out inside, and he put the action back after he was finished, and he left. And Glenn goes out to the cabin and he plays the piano, and he goes, "What did you do to my piano?" He calls him on the phone. He's completely flipped out. The piano is terrible. What did he do? And he goes back out to take a look at him. What he did, what Donna was just saying, that there was all this gunk on the key bed, and the piano was shifted over permanently in like a shift type of position. And he had all these grooves in the hammers that lined up with the piano not returning. And so when he cleaned off the key bed and everything, the piano slid back. And now you're playing with these terrible grooves. You're hitting the strings. So he had to go in and kind of shim the keyboard back to where it was. And that made Glenn happy.
Nice. No good deed goes unpunished, I would say in that case. Yeah. That's another point which we've made previously on these sessions is whenever you do anything, as best you can, you want to try and explain to the customer the benefit, what you did. And if possible, even beforehand, so I can't say that I always remember to do this, but I have done it on occasion. And I just think it's really helpful. So if I'm going to clean the keys of the piano, for example, people don't always see how dirty their keys are. We notice how dirty, I notice how dirty they are sometimes, right? Like I'm tuning the piano, I see these little dust prints on my fingertips, right? Because I've been playing the keys, and there's, especially towards the top ends of the white keys, there's some dust that gathers, and not everybody like even touches that, right? Like little kids are playing, they don't get up there to play. So people don't necessarily know how dirty the key is. So just a simple thing you can do is you can say, "Oh, hey, come on over, take a quick look. I'm about to clean the keys," and just clean like 2 or 3 of them, and then show them the difference between the keys that you cleaned off and the ones that haven't been cleaned. And you can even say, "Here, touch this one. You're going to feel the difference," things like that. And again, the reason behind that goes back to the no good deed goes unpunished thing. Is like there's been so many times, definitely getting better at it, where I've sort of done little extras, little things that I think are great for the piano, but I haven't checked in with the customer about it. And then it's always when I've done a lot of little extra things that there's something that went wrong as well, that still wasn't my fault, but there could be some confusion around it. Like there's a sticky key that they didn't notice until they started playing it, after I left or something like that. Of course, we all know we don't create sticky keys, right? It's just that they get excited about playing their piano and they go, "Oh, okay, what about this?" And of course, then they say, you made my key stick. And then, you can't then go back and say, yeah, but I cleaned this and I did this, and because it's not worth anything at that point. Whereas if you went to them beforehand and you said, hey, check out all these cool things I did for your piano. I adjusted the pedals, check that out, feel them, see how you like that. Here's how they were, here's the keys. I did this, I cleaned this. You can even take pictures, right, and pass them along. That's really useful stuff. Then at that point, if they have some confusion around something, that sticky key pops up and you go, oh, hey, that's probably just your piano. We missed that, but it's not something that I created. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, that guy didn't create this problem because he's very conscientious. He did all these other things, right? So that's another good tip around that. One thing I just want to get to, because Alan asked for it. So going on to the deeper cleaning. So in that case, you could even book an hour for that if you want. It just depends on what you want to get yourself into and how much time it's going to take. And again, you could charge up to 2/3 the price of a tuning. I mean, maybe even the same price as a tuning for a nice, deep, thorough cleaning. And in that case, that's going to be where you're not going to only open up the cavities of the piano, but like on a grand piano, you're going to clean the soundboard off. You're going to like remove keys potentially, right, and get dust out from underneath them. You can do that in an upright piano. You can do that in a grand piano. You could remove the action of both an upright or a grand piano. You could take it outside. You could take that compressed air that Carl was talking about, and you could just blow dust out of it, right, depending on how dirty it is. So basically, what I think of when I think of advanced cleaning is I add some more time on. Again, you could put however much you want. It doesn't have to be an hour. It could be a half hour, right? Like basic, intermediate, advanced could be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour. It could be 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, however long you want to book for that, and however much you want to charge for it, and, charge accordingly for, your time and effort and your expertise, of course. But yeah, when I think advanced cleaning, that's where I'm going to take stuff apart, to clean it, right? And then, when you get into even more detail, you can either call it out separately as a separate line item, or say that it's included when you regulate a piano, right? So, I'm going to regulate the action of this piano. And by the way, a part of that is I'm going to clean it. And here's some of the things I'm going to do. Just like we said, blow out the dust and so on and so forth. So I think it's always good to be communicative when you're doing extra steps that even though the client might not fully understand them, they're probably going to appreciate it. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question, Alan, but those are some of the things that I can think of for sure. And again, if you just list it as an option, and you say how much it's going to cost and how much time it's going to be, like we said, I forget who said it. Somebody said, oh, they stopped cleaning because it became too much. Well, just make it list a price that makes it worth your while, right? And then if they book it, then it'll be worth your while. And if they don't, great. You don't have to do it. You don't have to feel obligated to do it. So that's what I would say about that. Cool. Well, we got a little bit of time to talk about the convention. Lots of more fun stuff coming up. I actually pre-recorded a class that I'm going to share as part of the convention. It's going to be an extended material for the convention, but it's another session with Chano Dominguez, who we had here in the radio hour. I think we've had him twice. And he gave an extended masterclass on how he integrates his native music of flamenco, and he does flamenco piano with jazz music and other types of music. And so that was really great. He gave some examples. He gave some anecdotes and stories, gave some suggestions. That's going to be interesting to pianist, but I think also anybody that's just a lover of music. The music that he plays is really cool. Oh, here's an example. And you're just like, oh, wow, this is just a little quick example that he's improvising, but it's really, really great music. And we got a professional studio audio recording from his location on that. So the sound quality is really good. So that'll be a fun little extended materials that we'll have as part of this whole thing. So yeah, without further ado, I think we're right about the end of the hour. I don't know if anybody had anything else to say to wrap up. Otherwise, we'll definitely jump off and see you guys later. Hope to see you in the convention. Yeah, anybody else have anything else to say before we sign off? Questions, comments? No. Okay, great. We'll get to see everyone, and we'll see you again next time. I'll stick on for a second. Bonus days for the convention. Yeah, Robert. So basically what's going to happen, we definitely have these 3 days for the technicians, and that's going to be on the 2nd and the 10th and the 18th of September, so fast approaching. These bonus days, it's a new concept I've been playing around with, so we're still putting together who's going to be a part of them. But they're going to be, they might be after the existing convention days. Originally, we were thinking of integrating them within the existing convention timeframe. So like on the, the days after each of our tech days. But I think what we're going to do is add them on towards the end. They might even extend on into October. But for people who purchase the full packages of tech days, that will automatically get access to those. So you can attend them to live, or if recording access is within what you purchased, you can also get recordings of those things. And then the plan is to have 3 days, one for material that's, let me mute the SF PTG there just a second. 1 day for pianists. So, stuff like that content from Chano Dominguez. We're also going to have Frederick Chu come in and talk about paddling techniques and, different things that he does with paddles, more towards a musician's perspective. We've had him talk to tech perspective, but he's going to talk from a musician's perspective. He's an incredible classical pianist, if you're not aware of him. So he'll be another sort of featured presenter that's more for people who play piano and want some content to extend their understanding of, how to play piano well, or extend their techniques, or learn something interesting about playing. We'll also have another day which is going to be geared towards teachers, and that's going to be content that's going to sort of help teachers either teach better, build their business better, network with us better, things like that. And there'll probably be some content that's useful for piano technicians there as well. So that's in the works, a separate day for that. And then finally, a day that's more focused on the industry in general. And so in that case, we'll explore more of the, the brands that are out there that we may not know of, or may not have heard a lot of information about, some of the products and services that are out there that might be useful to us that we might not know much about. And just bringing a place where, I'm having a friend of mine is Freddie Ravel, and he's a really cool pianist. He lives out there in that LA area where you are, Carl. I mean, he's played with Madonna, Earth, Wind and Fire, Al Jarreau, you name it. He's been in all these really cool musical situations. And he's slated to give just kind of like an overview introduction to the intention of what we're doing. And he's going to talk about how, as members of the piano industry, including not just, the piano technicians, right? But people who make pianos and sell pianos and play them, right? And teach about it, right? Even people who have sheet music for pianos, like there's a community here. And we, maybe in the past we have, but I think nowadays it's been harder and harder for us all to come together to support the future of where the piano is going, right? And there's a lot of promising things in the future of the acoustic piano. And I think there's a lot of potential for us to more come together because we all have a common interest to support one another and really make this future cool for the acoustic piano. So in an industry day and as a theme for everything we're going to do, the idea there is, hey, let's bring these people together because we can, right? We can bring people together from different domains, from different parts of the world, because we're doing this online. We can do it synchronously at the same time. We could do it asynchronously, like people can join, they can watch recordings, things like that. Let's do it because we can, and it's going to be great for us and pianos and the piano industry if we can all work together and support each other. So that's the intention of the additional days of the convention. And again, still working out the details, but we'll include that content for anybody that signs up for the advanced packages of the tech convention as just an added bonus. Cool. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay. I will I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks for that question. Really great question. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Remember that you can catch us live online every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. Go to pianotechradio.com to register so you can interact live and ask questions of our guests.
See you next week.